you're doing this and it becomes automatic. What initially in those days that is kind of difficult for you to read, or maybe you need to get motivated to read, it now becomes automatic. So the brain sees it as automatic, and once it's time to read, it just switch to that mode, and you find it become easier.
Let's say, for example, there's an event that is happening in the house, and you're like, I have the goal of working out every single day. You can decide that, okay, before I go to bed, I'm going to do the workout. Or when I'm doing this, I'm going to do the workout. There's this concept of if then that Robert Cialdini talks about in his book. So the best way to achieve a goal is to attach it to something that you do consistently. Let's say you want to stop eating.
Luckily, I already understood the concept of intensity versus consistency, and I'd only work out for 5 days, for 5 minutes in a day. Then gradually, I increased it from 5 minutes to 10 minutes. Now I'm at 30 minutes.
Oftentimes, when we are aimed to achieve something, we are wired to want to go all in because of the excitement, right? And we often fail to understand that there is difference between intensity and consistency. Just like you are giving an example of wanting to develop the skill of reading books.
I've noticed that a lot of people prefer motivation over discipline. Bushra, what do you think is the difference between discipline and motivation?
Oftentimes, we overestimate the power of motivation. And for me, motivation gets you started in everything that you do, while discipline keeps you going. So, a very practical example could be when you want to drive a car. When you kickstart your car, it's an example of motivation. But pressing on the acceleration, for me, I would take it as discipline. Because at the end of the day, motivation is perishable. Motivation simply means that you feel like doing something when you have the energy, the drive, the desire to do something. While on the other hand, discipline is you get up and do what you have to do, regardless of whether you want to do it or not. And because at some point you would not have the energy required, not every time would you have the energy, the desire, the urge to do what you need to do. That's one of the reasons why, as a business owner, we often cannot rely on motivation. Like I said, it's not every time that you get to have that energy to keep pushing or to keep going. And that's where the discipline comes in, to say that you have to keep pushing yourself really hard. You have to keep going regardless of how difficult it gets, or regardless of whether you want to do it or you're interested in doing it. And when you look at the way success work, in the world of success, there is nobody that would want to do the hardest thing. And we all understand the fact that the hard work gets us to achieving that desired level of success. And nobody wakes up in the morning and feel like, oh, I feel motivated to hit the gym. I feel motivated or excited to do 20 push-ups. But then when you understand this is what you aim to achieve and this is what you desire to achieve, whether you feel like doing it, you have to do it regardless. And if you are that person that is looking to achieve really good level of success in business or anything at all that you do, you have to remain disciplined, because for you to be able to do something consistently, then you have to be disciplined. Because if motivation enables you to act occasionally, then discipline will be that thing that would allow you to act on a consistent basis. And we all understand the fact that consistency is required in achieving great level of success in anything that we do. And that's why discipline matters in everything that we do, whether in business or in other areas of life.
I noticed that you spoke about consistency, especially if someone is to be disciplined as a business owner. And Bumi, how do you think someone, or let's say it's me, I'm trying to get into the discipline of reading a book every day, not a book, a few pages every day, to grow and maintain the discipline of reading a book? How would you advise me to develop that discipline? Because my motivation is in and out.
There are different school of thought regarding that. First, let's take it from the angle of you looking to grow from motivation into discipline, what do you do? Then naturally, if you're an individual that is not disciplined, you can't become disciplined overnight. You have to train into it. And for this shift to happen, for you to shift from that motivation to that part of being disciplined, what that means is you need to stop relying on your feelings, because motivation is actually all about feelings. And the only way you can do that is for you to build structures that force consistencies. And there are ways for you to do that. The first thing is for you to just stop waiting for the perfect mood. You have to go out of that mood, you raise your standard. Then you can now make actions that are non-negotiable. You pick some core activities that you believe that this is what I can do, and then you can set a schedule, block your time on that, and then you get to repeat it for you to get discipline. So coming back to your question, if you're looking to read a book and then you're not the type that gets to do that, what you can simply do, like I've said, different school of thoughts regarding that. You have some people that will say for 21 days you can get to do that at a stretch. Every day you consistently do it. Ensure that before the end of the day you get to do it every time, regardless of whatever is happening. Maybe you have an event, or even the weekends. Like weekends, maybe you feel, oh, weekends I have to relax, but you still have to do it. And we have others that will say, just ensure that you study yourself, be a master of yourself, and know what works for you. We have some that they will say they are not early riser, and you have some that will say they can do things in the morning. So depending on yourself, how you see your body system work, how you understand yourself, then you can now plan in tune to how your body system works. So if you want to go for the event on a Saturday or Sunday and you feel, I have set out this particular time, this is when I'm supposed to do it, but I will not be available at that time to do. While driving to the event, or you're on transit to the event, why not listen to the audio version of that book you're looking to read? Maybe as you're going in the car, the audio version is playing, or you can put it on MP4 to listen via your headphone. Just ensure that in a day you are able to carry out this exercise, and the brain get that information that consistency is there. And by the time you do it a couple of times, 21 days at a stretch without stopping, then the brain system, because the way the algorithm of the human mind is made is made in a way that it works against us. You say you want to achieve something, your mind will keep telling you, are you sure you can do that? Is it possible for you to achieve that? But once the brain gets that information that every day you're doing this and it becomes automatic, what initially in those days that is kind of difficult for you to read, or maybe you need to get motivated to read, it now becomes automatic. So the brain sees it as automatic, and once it's time to read, it just switch to that mode, and you find it become easier for you to read it compared to the early stages of it. So that's just the best way if you're looking to improve on that.
To add to what Bumi had talked about with respect to consistency, oftentimes when we are aimed to achieve something, we are wired to want to go all in because of the excitement. And we often fail to understand that there is difference between intensity and consistency. Just like you are giving an example of wanting to develop the skill of reading books. Imagine when you're looking to start something for the first time and you start with reading 30 minutes per day. When you do that, it's more like you looking to go all in. And because it might be a painful process, because it's something that you're just looking to do for the very first time in your life, it might be very difficult for you to be able to keep up with it. And when an activity becomes boring, start wearing you off. So I'm going to give a personal example of myself. A couple of months ago, I wanted to start my evening walk journey, to say that every evening I would always go for a walk and all of that. And I started by taking 30 minutes of walk every day. And before you know it, I got really tired of doing it. And that was because I was looking to go intense all at once. Imagine if I was able to start 5 minutes on a daily basis. Maybe I'm still able to keep up with it. So whenever we are set to do something, the only way we can actually keep up with the consistency is to make the entire process a lot easier, to make the habit a lot easier, because we all have our elastic limit as individuals. So it's understanding at what point do we break, how much of hard work can you give to something without you getting tired or getting worn off. For me, if I'm going to talk about consistency, it's all about you being able to ensure that whatever it is that you're looking to do, you're able to take that small but consistent action. It's not all about you going all in. You want to like do that massive action all at once for you to be able to get the results. Because what happens is you get worn off at the end of the day and you eventually quit. And it becomes very difficult for you to be able to stay disciplined or keep up with it. So for us to be able to break that barrier of quitting or like getting reeled from that thing that we're looking to get disciplined with, we need to ensure that we take that small little action that would compound over time. It makes it a lot easier for us to be able to keep up with the consistency and stay disciplined.
I noticed that both you and Miss and Bumi said that I need to master myself. I've heard a lot about master yourself, know thyself, but really, what is mastering myself in regards to discipline, motivation? And Mohammed, what's mastering myself?
Mastering yourself simply means knowing yourself. Right? When it comes to the concept of discipline and consistency, first you have to know where exactly are you. Because you cannot move forward if you don't know where you are. So the first thing you need to do is to know, okay, in terms of consistency, what is my level of consistency whenever I put my mind to do something? That's the first thing you have to look at. The second thing you have to look at is also in terms of discipline. Where's my discipline at whenever I go into anything? That's the first thing you need to do. When you do that, it becomes easier for you to then go the journey, right? And for you to go the journey, firstly, you have to know the destination. When you know the destination, then you can now walk your way back and be like, okay, what level of discipline do I need to add to what I already have? Let's say, for example, your max is, you want to start reading a book. Your max is 20 minutes. Whenever you do it for like 1 month, the motivation, the discipline, everything dies off. So you already know where you are is 20 minutes for 1 month. And you want to now set a goal. The target is for you to eventually get to, let's say you want to build a business and the business requires you to learning a skill. All you just need to do is to know that this is where I am. When you know this is where you are, it becomes easier for you to be able to compound on that. I know that after 1 month, I'm going to get tired. So let me just add 1 more day. Let me just add 1 more day. That's the first thing. Another thing you could do is you could think, all right, is it because of the 20 minutes that I'm putting in, or is it because of the time? Because there could be people that even if they put in 5 minutes, after 1 month, it completely dies off. But there might be some people that if they reduce the time a little bit, then the time increases. So that's what I would have to say when it comes to being able to master yourself.
What you said is actually quite interesting, because when people are looking to set an identity for themselves, what happens is they use others as benchmark. And there's something that I say all the time: you cannot compare somebody's day 1000 to your own day 10. Imagine if Mohammed has been in the journey of speaking for the past year, and I'm just starting my own journey of speaking. Imagine if Mohammed can actually speak for like 30 minutes without breaking. And then Bushra is looking to identify herself and her communication skill. And is looking to be like, oh, Mohammed can speak for 30 minutes. For that reason, I think I can also do the same. So it's all about understanding exactly at what stage we are in life to be able to not necessarily use somebody as a benchmark. Yes, people could be a motivation to us, but then at the end of the day, when we are looking to set a benchmark for ourselves, we need to understand exactly at what point are we in life for us to be able to really create an identity that would match the situation that we are currently in, not necessarily using somebody else's journey as a benchmark for yourself. It's actually a really good thing that you've pointed out.
Why do you think people fall into the habit of making others as their benchmark? Where do you think that comes from?
For me, I think it's just comparison. And then we are as individuals, we are always wired to want to compare our success with somebody else's success. And when it happens, we often mistake looking at somebody as a motivating factor than actually using that person as a standard for our own life. Yes, I could look at Bumi and feel like her speaking skill is top notch, and she keeps me motivated. She's somebody that I look up to, and then I just want to be like her. She is a motivation. Not to say that I need to set her as a standard for my life, because we need to understand the fact that each and every one of us journey is quite different. And then maybe I'm not going to be as eloquent as Bumi, or maybe I could even be better than her. But then it's all about our ability to be able to identify, am I using this person as a benchmark, or am I actually using this person as a motivation to say I can actually be like her, or I can actually do as much as she's doing.
You touched upon something very important. I remember recently I was going through a video by Vinjeng, and when he talks about how to become an effective communicator. Right now, this is in the topic of using other people as benchmark, not to deviate from the topic. He talked about picking 3 good speakers that you'd like, and he gave the example of a chef. If someone wants to master a particular dish, they don't just start a new dish on their own. What they do is they look at another dish that someone has already done, and they do it exactly the way the person has done it. And once they master that, then they can now add their flavor. And when it comes to consistency and discipline, a lot of people believe that if I'm not being disciplined as this particular person, then I'm not being disciplined. If I'm not being as consistent as this particular person, then I'm not being consistent. Because here's the thing: when you do something over and over and over and over again, it becomes a habit. Just like you said, someone might be in day 1000, and that activity has already become a habit for that person. You trying to shift your identity, comparing yourself to someone who that action is already a habit for you, it's going to be very difficult. So I resonate very well with being able to step back a little bit, see this person is a motivation for me, but not a benchmark. I have to also work within my own capacity and then ensure that I'm disciplined within that. And then with time, I can now improve and get to that place. And just like you said, also moving past that person.
That's very true. That's very true. It's more like saying, if you're a salesperson and you could make 100 call, does that mean that 100 call in a week, for an instance, does that mean that every salesperson can make 100 call? Because what I say is, what's the point of actually doing huge amount of work to end up quitting? So it's all about you identifying yourself. Yes, like you rightfully stated, somebody can actually be somebody that will keep you going, because at the end of the day, you cannot always look at people behind you to move forward. You always have to look at people ahead of you, right? And for you to be able to like stay disciplined and keep up with that level of discipline, you always have to look at people that are better than you. But not to say that when you're not doing as much as them, then it represents the fact that you're not doing as much as you should be doing. And that takes us back to what I did say earlier, that everybody has a point where they break. Maybe Mohammed is able to wake up 4 a.m. on a daily basis and is able to function mentally. But maybe Bushra would wake up 4 a.m. and then it disrupts the entire day. So what's the point of waking 4 a.m. and disrupts the entire day if I know that I cannot keep up with that kind of discipline? So I do agree with you 100%. So Bumi, I would like to also hear your take in regards to this conversation.
When we use an individual like as a motivation for us, it helps us to actually track our growth. It gives room for accountability. You see this person, this is the person that is your role model. I actually like the way this person speaks, and I'm trying as much as possible to improve myself to get to that level. So once the process of communication where we get to record our conversation to see how far, by the time you go through your own communication, the ones you've recorded to actually edit, then you can now pick. I like the way Mohammed speak. I want to be better like him. I look at his framework when he's coming to communicate. How does he arrange his points? What are the ways he speaks? So I can use him as a means of accountability. I can do better in this area. This area, I still need to improve my skill.
That's a very good point you touched upon, Bumi, because using someone as an accountability is always going to help you to be able to know exactly where you're driving at. Just like you gave the example of myself, you want to look at my framework, you'll be like, this is what I need to improve while you are still learning. But we shouldn't fall into a victim of using that person as a benchmark or using that person as a competition. Because just like you said, Bushra, that person could be in day 1000 and you're in day 2. Just because that person is reading 5 books in 1 week doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be reading 5 books in 1 week. You haven't gotten there just yet.
It's very common for people in day 1, or they tend to compare themselves with people in their 1000. And in most cases, I find that people that are in day 10, they will have very high intensity, which means they are highly motivated, but they may not necessarily be able to burn through to the day they will get to day 1000. So what I'd say is, at least for my personal case, the example I can give is that in my personal journey in doing workouts, I started workouts with only doing 5 minutes a day. Luckily, I already understood the concept of intensity versus consistency, and I'd only work out for 5 minutes in a day. Then gradually I increased it from 5 minutes to 10 minutes. Now I'm at 30 minutes. I do know some people are able to do a whole workout for an hour or two. I'm not yet there, but I still look up to them and I admire them. But I am still on my journey on the health fitness. Also, the other thing that I do is even if it's eating healthy, you start by slowly cutting out the junk and then you start putting in the better and organic food. I do know that some people go cold turkey and they cut it off at once. Some people have been successful, but that is not necessarily the path. So I'd like to hear from you also. There was a concept of sometimes between day 10 and day 1000, there's a place you get really bored and it's no longer exciting. The motivation is still not there. How do you make sure that you overcome the boredomness to get to the goal that you're looking to get to as a business owner?
At the end of the day, it's all about system. Earlier on, you talked about some people are able to do cold turkey, automatically just remove everything all at once. It goes back to what Bushra said earlier. You have to know yourself. Some people are able to do that. And if that's something that you're able to do, perfect. It goes back to knowing yourself. Now, when it comes to being able to take care of that boredom, it still goes back to knowing yourself. One of the things that would allow you to remain within the structure is if you are going within your means. Instead of having to do workout for 30 minutes or 1 hour, you're only able to do workout for 15 minutes. Maintain that 15 minutes. And also have contingency plans. If, let's say, for example, there's an event that is happening in the house and you're like, I have the goal of working out every single day. You can decide that, okay, before I go to bed, I'm going to do the workout. Or when I'm doing this, I'm going to do the workout. There's this concept of if-then that Robert Cialdini talks about in his book. So the best way to achieve a goal is to attach it to something that you do consistently. Let's say you want to stop eating junk and then you just set the goal that anytime someone offers me junk, I'll do 2 press-ups. That way, you are able to attach the goal to something that you do consistently. So even if you are not able to do it at a specific time, at the very least, you are going to be able to find a way to do it along the day. And this is also something the author of Atomic Habits always say, don't miss twice enough. So even if you are inconsistent, you do at least 50% of the time, which is better.
When someone is trying to grow their discipline, moving from motivation to discipline, but there's the issue of weekends, and on weekends you want to kind of take it easy. The goal remains, but either you have distractions, you have events, families coming in, they're going out, you have just different things that are happening. How would you say you would maintain the discipline and the consistency, especially on weekends and holidays?
I have this concept of worst case scenario, because when we are actually looking to be disciplined in whatever it is that we are looking to get disciplined with, we need to be able to set that thing to a point that, irrespective of whatever happened, I'm still able to keep up with it. So how much of activities am I able to do and still being able to keep up with it regardless of the situation? It's all about having that worst case scenario. Example of that would be, even if I cannot read 20 pages of a book like I've actually planned out to do, at least I'll read for 5 minutes. That's a worst case scenario. Another thing would be, if I want to lose weight and I'm going to hit the gym on a daily basis. But then the worst case scenario would be, what if I'm not able to hit that gym? What's the alternative that will still ensure that I keep up with that routine? That would be the worst case scenario that I'm looking at. An example of that would be, let's say for instance, you've actually had your workout routine, and then maybe during the new year, it makes sense to think that you cannot actually take your workout bag and then get dressed and say, I want to hit the gym. So what could the worst case scenario be? It could be, I'm going to actually do 20 scouts in the bathroom before I have my bath, in order for me to still be able to keep up with the routine. So let's say Mohammed is looking to have that 6 packs, and then let's say on Eid day he's not able to hit the gym. It would be, I'm going to do 20 push-ups in the bathroom before I actually have my bath. And that would be the worst case scenario, to say that even if I'm not able to do this, I'm still able to complement with that. Because another thing that is very, very important when we're actually trying to stay disciplined is momentum. And when you lose that momentum, it becomes highly improbable for you to be able to keep up. And Mohammed was talking about not missing it twice. In fact, for me, I would say you should not miss it once. Just look for something that you're able to make up with that activities that you're looking to do, to say, even when everything goes south, even when I find myself in the most difficult situation, I'm still able to make up with this. So example of myself would be, I have to do my Quran recitation on a daily basis. Worst case scenario, if I'm not able to sit and read because time does not permit, at least I need to listen to it to still ensure that I'm still able to keep up with that activities, and for me not to lose that momentum. Because once that momentum is lost, then it becomes very hard to be able to stay disciplined.
Absolutely. And Bumi, in this scenario, we are looking at someone who is in day 1000 and they're able to read 50 pages of the book in a day, and another person who's on day 10 who's only reading 2 pages a book. The journey from 2 pages to 50 pages, what do you think would be needed for the person in day 10 for them to get to day 50? What kind of behavior or standards, what do they need to adapt for them to be able to successfully get to page, or rather day 1000 successfully? Because we've seen that in between people drop off because of boredom, sometimes they lose momentum, and we've been advised whatever happens, don't miss it twice.
To actually attain this successfully from your day 10 to get to the larger number, discipline is something that is going to keep the person going. But like we have said, Bushra has mentioned worst case scenario, and Mohammed has also mentioned that you don't miss it twice. Bushra said not to miss it at all. In my own perspective, the best way to go through this process is to gradually move. Master yourself. Just like we have said, intensity does not guarantee success. It is the stability that actually guarantees the success. How you show up every day, regardless of whether you're feeling to do it or you're not feeling to do it. And another thing I will also mention is, at the beginning, you need to shrink the action. Just like we have said, you don't at a stretch go 20 pages. No. If that is not what you can do, you take it gradually. Gradually you proceed. If it's you want to make a call, maybe the person you're looking at can make 100 calls in a day, and you as a person, you're just starting at that day 10. Yes, you might not have that ability to make 100 calls in a day, so you can shrink the action. Just start with making 10 calls in a day and gradually increase the number once your body system is actually used to that. And another major thing is to create environment that will reduce the friction. For example, you want to make calls and you pick your phone, you want to make the call, and you see some notification coming in. You just go ahead and read the notification, then you gradually forget about the call you want to make. So we can create that environment that type of friction is actually reduced, so that you can focus on making that call. And another thing that I will also say is, as an individual, I know that at the beginning is very difficult, but we need to speak to ourselves. There are sometimes we need to build that identity. We need to take action immediately, even before you have that time. You act before you feel ready. When I say act before you feel ready, how can you do that? You can use what they call the 5 seconds rule. Motivation, sometimes it helps. It's just like a spark. When you have that spark to read that book, you can quickly pick up the book and read it, because once you take time, that is when your mind will start giving you excuses why you will not be able to read it. So there's sometimes it's good to act before you're ready. And the truth is, most time we are not ready. There's no time we feel ready. We just have to put ourselves in that mood. And one major thing I've come to know is, mood doesn't come all the time. Just take the actions, then the mood will follow.
There's something that came up to me when you were speaking about, if you consistently maintain the discipline or the action that you're doing, then you will be able to get to success. But then I've always been baffled, Mohammed, where would you put success, discipline, and luck? At what point do they converge or support each other?
Success, discipline, and luck. I will put success at the forefront. I'll put luck in between in between discipline and success. A practical example I'll give you is Dangote. When Dangote was decided that he wanted to go into the oil business, there was no way he was going to know that there was going to be an Iran-Israel war that is going to shoot the price of oils, of petrols, of fuel, that virtually almost all of the countries in West Africa are dependent on his refinery. There was no way that he was going to know that. That was pure luck. But imagine if he never had the refinery. That law couldn't have caught up with him. Right? And there was an interview that he was doing that they asked him that after he had already done the refinery and he wanted to kickstart it, he wanted to do the opening. The interviewer was asking him, if you knew what you know now back then, would you have gone into it? He said no, he wouldn't have gone into it, which means he faced challenge throughout the journey. The reason why he's here is not because he didn't face challenge, it's because he was disciplined. So the discipline is what allows you to meet the luck. And the reason why there's luck is because as human beings, you can never control all the variables that happens in reality. You can never control it. And I also go back to one of my favorite books, which is The Richest Man in Babylon. In there was a story about a ship merchant. Before narrating the story, they were actually in like a casino. In ancient Babylon, their own variation of a casino where they drink and do all sorts of things. And they were talking about luck. And someone was talking about gambling, that gambling is luck. And Arkad, who is the richest man in Babylon, the tag was given to someone called Arkad. Then he narrated, he said, that is not luck. Luck is actually preparedness, meeting opportunity. Someone now came and told them about the story of him. He's a ship merchant and he had the need to get ship. Babylon, there was scarcity of ships. So he had to go out of the gates of Babylon to go seek. He went searching for days. He did not see anything. And then he was like, okay, no problem. Let me just come back to Babylon. To his frustration, he came back at night and the gates of Babylon was already locked. He had to make his camp outside and sleep outside. Because of that, an old man, an elderly man, came with 1,000 ships to sell to the man. Now imagine, he's a ship merchant, right? He entered into the business of ship merchants and he went out despite the scarcity. He went out, he saw the idea that I could go out, buy it at a cheaper rate, come back and sell it at a higher rate. He went out and he was stuck. And an old elderly person came with 1,000 ships, was going to sell it to him. Now here's the thing. Just because luck presents itself to you doesn't mean you are going to get the benefit of that luck. The mistake that this man made was he wanted to verify that the ships are up to 1,000. And the man had a sick wife and he was very, very desperate to sell it to the person. He was even planning on selling it at a much cheaper rate than he intended to go and buy it. So he had the gain. But because he did not want to take the risk of buying it and finding out that, okay, it's not up to 1,000, he said, you know what, I'm not going to do that. The man begged him that he needed to get medication for his wife. And he said that he should sleep on it. And in the morning, he's going to verify. He said, okay, give me 80%. And then I'm going to leave my word with you. Once you've confirmed it in the morning, if it's not complete, whatever is left, you take it. But if it's complete, give the remaining 20% to my word and he will bring it to me. And he said, we have to confirm it. And he went to sleep. But this is where he missed out on the opportunity. He overslept. In the earliest morning, the gates of Babylon was opened. And the very moment he woke up, he noticed that all of the ship has already been sold to other ship merchants. And when he was narrating his story, he narrated that was how luck evaded him. So luck meets preparedness. I gave the example of the ship merchant. I gave the example of Dangote. So what connects the two is you have to have a target of what you want to achieve. And you have to be disciplined enough to go through it because it is not going to be easy for you to get to that destination. And it's that discipline that will allow you to eventually meet that luck that is going to make everything change for you.
Thank you for those comments on luck and how luck depends on one's ability to be prepared and see the opportunity and take it. What is the one thing that you would leave to the audience as a takeaway on this discussion where we started off with discipline and motivation? Then now we've ended up discussing about luck, preparedness, and readiness.
If there is anything that I'd like anyone to take out of this discussion, that would be to understand that to achieve success in any areas of life, be it in business, personal, or whatever, we need to understand the fact that success does not come from a place of comfort. And because success does not come from a place of comfort, it means that we need to subject ourselves to hard work. And as individuals, when anything at all is hard, it becomes very difficult for us to be able to have that steady energy and excitement, which means that if you're looking to achieve great level of success, you need to work hard. And because you're working hard, you would not always have that energy. You will not always have the desire. You will not always have the urge. That is where discipline comes in. You need to study yourself. You need to identify yourself to understand that what can I do on a consistent basis and still able to keep up with it. Because the only way that we can actually stay disciplined is our ability to identify that small habit that we're able to keep up with it and do it on a consistent basis. Because what success requires is consistency. It's not what you do occasionally that helps you achieve that desired level of success or desired level of goal. It is what you do on a consistent basis. For you to make discipline a lot easier, understand what your elastic limits are, understand at what points do you break, in order for you to be able to study that little habits that you can repeat on a consistent basis.
Much appreciated. And Bumi, what is the one takeaway that you would want to leave the audience with?
One thing I want the audience to actually go with as they journey through life and even in their business is to understand that motivation is emotional. It is unstable. It is so fickle. And he does not guarantee success. Every single day, we have seen that discipline actually wins the whole race at the end of the day. Why discipline is stable is intentional. So for every individual that we're going through the journey of life in different areas of life, and let's ensure that we are able to build our life around discipline, not motivation. Because success is not built on how we feel. Is actually built on what we do consistent, and that means we need to build a system, we need to set a standard, and every time we need to evaluate ourselves. Accountability is also something that is very crucial for us to be consistent, and once we are consistent, we will begin to see the result over time that it will compound. If you want to build our activities or our life around motivation, I guarantee that days that the spark is not there, we are not consistent. And inconsistency robs us of a lot of things. It robs us of the momentum, it robs us of our vision in life. Overall, discipline is something very, very crucial as we journey through life.
That's very good. What I'll do now, you've challenged me back to my earlier conquest or desire. I want to be able to read a book once a week, but I'll start with reading a book, a few pages, just 20 minutes in the morning. And then in 3 months, I will be accountable to you. You will tell me if my system worked. Right now, my motivation is very high. I can even read a whole book in one day, but I just want to maintain that discipline and consistency about reading just what I can in the first 20 minutes of the day. And I'll get back to you on the issue of accountability. And Mohammed, what would be your closing remark to the audience?
Everything we've talked about in this discussion is related, from discipline to motivation to luck to success. Everything is interconnected. Everything is interconnected. And Bushra and Bumi have said it all. The motivation is emotional, and our emotions goes up and down. It's not something that we can control. The one thing we can control is what we do, not how we feel. The last thing that I'm going to leave with everyone is, as we journey through trying to be more disciplined, we also have to be easy on ourselves. Because one spectrum is completely doing too much. The other spectrum is when you see that you're not able to do too much, you start going in the direction of blaming yourself. And when you go in that direction of blaming yourself, it is a discipline killer. So be easy on yourself. And just like James Clear would always say, don't miss twice in a row.
Absolutely. You have heard them. These are the people we were discussing on the matter of discipline versus motivation. Make sure you're consistent. Over and above motivation, be disciplined. And we learned that being disciplined is having a system. Having a system is thinking and deciding that I will do this set of activities every day for me to get to the goal that I want. So in my example was that I want to read more books because I want to learn more. I want to self-educate. For me to do that, I obviously can't boil books and drink the juice, right? So I need to commit to reading every day. But honestly, I get bored. Between my day 10 and my day 1000, I get bored and falling outside the way. At day 100 or 200. Then at the beginning of the year, I will start again with new fire and motivation. So the takeaway that I've taken from this is that I will start with just consistently reading for 20 minutes every day. Whether I read 1 page or 10 pages, that is my commitment every day, including weekends. That way, even when I'm not in the mood of reading, I will still read. And my worst case scenario is if I can't read, I will listen to a podcast of a book. Also, if the worst happens and that day I am not able to, the advice I've gotten is that I should never miss it twice, and I need to be kind to myself, because I really feel bad when I commit to something but my energy levels are low. I was working on motivation, but what I actually did was discipline. Thank you so much for joining us today. We welcome you for our next session. It's a goodbye.